Hello and welcome to Cyber Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group principal analysts, namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today.
With us today is our special guest, Adam Brennick, Director of Security, Risk and Compliance at Cockroach Labs. Hey, Adam.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. And you're going to be instructing us in the proper method for Texas barbecuing, right?
100%. I don't cook it, but I eat it. So I can tell you the spots to hit if you're in Austin, Texas, definitely. But if someone's looking for preparation, I would say Food Network and try to watch, or Netflix has a good barbecue challenge show.
Yeah,
that's so funny. I never know the difference, Adam, between Texas and Tennessee. Like one's a dry rub, one's a wet rub. Do you know if Texas is wet or dry rub?
They're, I think, a bit more like dry and then sauce on the side. So like full candor here, I'm not a Texas native. I moved from Maine, but I've been here for 15 years now. So yeah, each geographic area, I think for the most part, has a meat that they cook a particular way. But I know that in Tennessee, like they tend to lean towards taking the meat and mopping it, right? Like with sauce and going that side. And then I think some of the areas like St. Louis, they focus a bit more on ribs, which you cook with the barbecue sauce on there mostly. And then in Texas, like brisket is king. And so we focus on that here predominantly.
Okay,
nice.
You have accomplished the unusual. It's 8:23 for me in Pacific time zone, and I'm hungry for brisket. Thank you so much, Adam. But let's get to what Cockroach Labs does and what you specifically do for them in your security, risk, and compliance role.
Yeah, happy to share. So Cockroach Labs has a flagship product, which is a distributed SQL database called CockroachDB. Interesting name, definitely. When I was approached for a job here, they said the company's Cockroach Labs. I said, "Oh, this is just a phishing exercise. Someone's trying to get my information." But real product, great product. The distributed SQL database, the idea behind it with Cockroach is that it's indestructible. I won't get too deep in the technical weeds if you're interested.
And we can definitely talk. I'd love to learn more. But we really want to just, talk to you from the and thank you for that. That's great.
Yeah.
But we also want to know what are you doing for Cockroach Labs and what is your day-to-day? What keeps you up at night?
Sure.
What are you concerned about? What's going on in your daily grind?
Yeah, absolutely. So my role as Director of Security, Risk, and Compliance is I oversee our security engineering team that is really involved with protecting the perimeter of our managed service, which is a database as a service offering of CockroachDB, and also code vulnerability management and incident response. So it's an amalgamation of multiple roles in the security engineering field. And then I also manage our governance, risk, and compliance team. Keeping track of all the risks, engaging with business units and stakeholders to ensure that we have an accurate and up-to-date risk register.
I was just going to say, just a small job, not a lot going on in your daily life, right?
Easy.
What keeps you up at night? Yeah. Tell me what keeps you up at night.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of like the main things that keeps me up at night on a day-to-day, week-to-week, like month-to-month basis is how do we as a team, understanding the constant evolution of cloud and AI and you name it, how do we stay as much as we can one step ahead of what's coming? Because there's always something new. There's always a slew of issues that can arise anytime. So how do we stay ahead of what's coming? And then the other piece is, this is going to sound weird, but like asset management, right? Like asset management, it's like the unsexy thing of security. But like if asset management isn't totally buttoned up and you don't know what's there and what your footprint is, then you can't, properly threat model against it. You can't properly protect it. So it's like trying to stay ahead of things, and then also like always thinking about like our assets in these areas where I don't want to say exposed, but there's potential for exposure, and how do we continue to corral that and keep our eyes on all of that so we can know where to focus our energy.
For 20 years now, in any speech I've given, when I've talked to security directors, security VPs, folks in the audience, and I would say to them, do you know where your assets are? Do you have any idea what your landscape looks like? And I'd say, do you know where your PHI is or your PII? And hands would go up. I know where it all is. But a lot of times, as you well know, we don't know where our data is. We think it's somewhere protected, but it's not. And we don't know where our assets are. We don't have them inventoried, classified, and then protected, right? And from a security standpoint, you have to know where everything is so that you're making use of things and not just having shelfware. And also not having vulnerabilities. So that leads us into the exposure management piece that we're definitely going to be talking about.
One thing I wanted to, you make a good point there, Christina, and Adam, I don't know how you think about this, but certainly when it comes to looking at implementing AI as part of business process optimization, or however you want to phrase it, knowledge of where data is and how protected it is a key to getting the most out of AI and automation in particular. So I thought for me, having had this discussion before, the relationship between those two aspects, protection, but also knowledge of location and how to use it and optimize it, seemed to be becoming more and more intertwined.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough to, I think, oftentimes like not have protection and accessibility at odds with each other to some extent, because especially, with the prevalence of AI and trying to use AI to streamline business process and even from a security standpoint, like make things more secure, you have to give LLMs or even individuals, right, on like data teams, access to that data. And when you do that, there's always that increased blast radius, right, as you're increasing that access and accessibility to data. It's just more opportunity for something to happen, like, I don't know, maybe like a ClickHouse database that's publicly accessible. And all the data's in there that's exposed. Things like that can happen, right? And it's I didn't make up this phrase, but someone said it once and it stuck with me. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary firewall rule. And
I love that.
A lot of times when there's a push or desire to get access to more data, in this instance, talking about AI, like you have an LLM that you want to expose more data to train the model to make it more efficient. Sometimes you can sacrifice a little bit and say like, okay, we're going to just like open it up for this one thing, or temporarily we're going to provide access to check, right, if it's going to make things more efficient. And then that access persists and people get busy, they forget about other things, and then that's where I don't think it's nefarious, it's unintentional, but you leave something open, you forget about it, and then you don't find out about it until you're in the news, which nobody wants.
Yeah, I thought that was quite a deeply interesting observation that I'm sure we'll be seeking the answers out for going forward. And yes, we did have, as Christina said, a very interesting discussion just earlier about this. But I mean, that's super interesting. I wanted to ask you a little bit more, Adam, about where you see things going. Obviously, as Christina pointed out, you've got a massive job to do in an ever-evolving landscape that will see more and more requirements when you look at governments, regulatory environments, and so on. How do you see your job evolving? And would you recommend it to somebody else? Let's say the energetic young millennials and Gen Zers that are going to be listening to this potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm trying to push like my job into more is I think oftentimes people will approach me or my team or my boss from a security perspective and look for a definitive yes or no answer to something. Like, should I be doing this? Should we use this vendor? Should we change this business process to accommodate something? Like, what are the security risks of that? Now, often I think they're looking for us to say, yes, that's fine, or no, you shouldn't do that. And I don't really see security, risk compliance as the gatekeepers. I mean, if we see something that's just a terrible idea, like, no, you can't do that. But I think oftentimes I'm trying to take the stance of I should be informing business owners or stakeholders about what it means for risk acceptance with the question you're asking me. So it's less about, yes, I can do this, no, I can't do this, but understanding what are the outcomes of moving forward and changing a business process or a vendor, and what could that mean to the business, us collectively as a team, and are you willing as the business owner, process owner, to take on that risk? Does it seem agreeable for you in weighing that off? So I'm trying to keep that mindset and do that, and trying to, hopefully, if I can, inform the organization, right? That our job isn't necessarily to say yes or no. It's about to help and make informed business decisions about
I think that is a very mature risk reward conversation that a business can have. And when we see the yes no obstacle of security, it doesn't enable the business. And what we're seeing as we mature just over the decades with security is that security is becoming more of a business enabler if you're doing your job right, it seems to me. And having that risk versus reward conversation puts the C-suite in the position of making decisions. Are we willing to go forward with something, taking this risk on, as you say, and we're willing to have that risk mitigated by, as you said, tooling, or maybe we don't want to do tooling. Maybe we just want to put some insurance around it, which is a blessing and a curse. But I think it's a very interesting conversation. And those people who have that conversation at the executive level are looking at the business with open eyes rather than just sort of dodging forward in a way that is putting the business at risk without really understanding what the risk is.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And it's, as you said, right? Like, security is a business enabler. I handle a lot of customer questionnaires and, operate in a customer facing manner frequently. And having an investment in security is now just table stakes, right? Like, if you're trying to sell a product or a tool and you can't respond to security questionnaires or vendor risk assessments in an acceptable manner, it's going to be very tough to sell your product. You could have the keenest, coolest product in the world, but if you're not able to respond to these customer questionnaires effectively and give them the appropriate answer and show that as a business you're investing in this area, then it's really tough to scale your business at all. And you kind of wind up, I think, in a area of, you have a really cool tool that nobody can use or nobody's willing to use.
Well, and that's protecting the brand and reputation in working with your partners and your customers in a responsible manner around the securing of your capabilities. And so it's interesting when we do research how often we see that companies are buying particular cybersecurity tools, solutions, in order to bolster their brand and reputation or to satisfy customer and partner requirements. It makes total sense to me. I want to go back to what you said about what keeps you up at night is staying ahead of future things. So you're a futurist like us. We like to look at the future. Nobody saw DeepSeek coming. I'm sure somebody saw it coming. But how do you stay ahead of things that could be really challenging for your company and in your role? How do you read a ton? Do you talk with people a lot? How do you stay ahead?
Yeah, I use multiple avenues to do that. I know some people, they don't love LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn for an information source, right? It's my social media. It's the tool I use the most, right? To get in and follow as many people as I can, stay on top, like always reading through my thread, getting as much information as I can from LinkedIn, because I like there, it's skews more professional, right? So I use X quite a bit. I follow a fair amount of folks in the space, but I do find X has a lot of information that is valuable. If you can follow the right people on X, like you do get a lot of good information that you can use, even if it's just a thought bubble, right? That you can then go and research yourself. I do podcasts. I usually do them through YouTube, to be honest. I subscribe to a lot of business channels. So like Wiz or Daz, I know they just got acquired by them. And then some of the tools that we use in our stack, we use Sneak and Sysdig, right? Like I try to follow these businesses because I know we keep coming back to DeepSeek, but like a Wiz researcher is the one that found that ClickHouse database for DeepSeek. So I find like I'm trying to amalgamate a lot of sources online. And then if I'm reading, generally, like the books I'm reading aren't more or less like cutting edge stuff. It's more books to help continue to ground my foundation a bit more about cloud security, risk management, and then some of the technology we use like infrastructure as code and Kubernetes, just to make sure that I'm staying abreast of everything that's happening. And then the last bit there is I use my network as well, because I'm in compliance and managing that side. I work with a fair amount of legal teams and audit agencies and audit firms, and I'll just go to them and ask them questions, right? Like, what are you seeing? Are other customers experiencing challenges? And oftentimes they're more than happy to have a conversation with me or share some details and perspective on what they have.
Adam was wondering, what can we look forward to? Now, in a few words, what can we look forward to from Cockroach Labs, and where should listeners go to get more information?
Sure. Yeah. If you're interested in Cockroach Labs, one thing that I would strongly encourage folks to do is go to Cockroach U. That's university.cockroachlabs.com. There's free training courses there. You can get free certifications for Cockroach DB. Our marketing site carries a lot of interesting blog posts that you can just subscribe to. Our newsletter is available. No Stale Reads gets a lot of information about Cockroach Labs and distributed SQL in general. We're very active across all socials for sending out information about distributed SQL.
Thank you so much, Adam, for joining us. It was really a great discussion. And you know what I appreciated the most? Well, I appreciated the whole conversation, but really it was so helpful how you articulated what you do to stay ahead of future concerns, how you go to different socials, different books that you read, different podcasts perhaps, and how you talk to your colleagues in legal and compliance and maybe insurance, and then also how you talk to your network. So that is really helpful for the next geners, the up-and-comers, those people who are growing into your boots, and we really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you, Adam, for joining us today. Thank you for coming on and being our first guest, I should have said before.
Oh, right.
First guest. So
That's
thank you
right.
for that. I was going to say the guinea pig, but no, that would be disrespectful. But definitely our first guest. So thank you very much. And we hope to hear from you again soon and perhaps see you at RSA or one of the events.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in for the show this week. Thanks, Christina, for the great discussions. Give us your comments. Perhaps you have an opinion on something we've talked about. Perhaps you even have an opinion on us, although we may not share them if they're not complimentary, of course. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, share, follow, etc., etc. And we look forward to chatting with you next week. Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.